You're listening to the Telltale channel. Don't forget to check me out on all social media: Patreon, Twitter, Teespring, and Etsy. All links can be found in the description or on my website, telltaleatheist.com. Hey, this is Owen. If you're comfortable, leave your first name and state at the sound of the tiny truck backing up.
Hi, this is Jesse from New Jersey. I actually had a question about self-radicalization, because I've noticed that I've spent a lot of time on left-wing parts of the internet, watching atheist content on YouTube. I've noticed that I have become much more vocal. And I was wondering, I'm worried actually about the possibility of me self-radicalizing. If I am doing that, how to prevent myself from doing that, and some warning signs that I might be able to see if I'm doing that. Thank you. Have a good day.
Awesome question. I really appreciate that question. There are some signs that you should pay very close attention to. There are left-wing radicals and there are right-wing radicals, and you don't want to be radical at all. You don't want to be an extremist. Extremism leads to pain and suffering. Just avoid it at all costs. So let me give you a few examples of some red flags that you can think about. One of the major red flags, if you're like in a group talking to people or whatever, I've talked about this in a video before, and I actually wrote basically an article about radicalization in groups on the internet, social media groups or whatever else. And there are some keys that I've noticed about it. One of the keys that I've noticed is there's role model formation in these groups. Suffering or persecution reinforces and promotes status within the group. There's a persecution complex. The more persecuted you feel for your beliefs, the more vindicated you feel. Criticizing other group members promotes status within the group. If somebody isn't living up to your expectations, if somebody you know, a friend of yours or something, isn't living their lives perfectly in line with how you believe they should be living their lives, then criticizing those people makes you feel more important, makes you feel better and higher up than those people. Personal success is linked to group acceptance. The more in line with the group's ideology that you are, the more successful you feel as a person. Unquestioning loyalty to a set of ideas or suppression of skepticism is another problem in these groups. Willingness to believe any information presented if it's in support of the belief system. If somebody presents a meme to you or an idea or a belief or whatever, try to reframe the idea and think about it. And really decide if that's something that you would have accepted if it had been presented to you by somebody else. And investigate the information as objectively as possible. Like, not with the group, not with the person. Step away from it completely and look into the ideas presented. Look at examples of, for example, if you're in like a communist group or something, or if you're in a socialist group and somebody suggests communism, look into whether or not communism has worked in the past and where the failings have been if it hasn't. Rejection of information critical of the ideology is another point on the model. If people are refusing to hear any criticisms, no matter what, just refuse to listen to, just push it right out of their minds, without even addressing it, that's a problem. Think about whether or not you're doing that. Extensive use of propaganda, a lot of the times in the form of memes, using emotional language and things like that, or reframing things in specific ways to put this side in a better light than that side or whatever else. Placing exaggerated importance on events or ideas. That one is a key to this whole thing. All right, let me give you a couple of examples. I've been talking about these examples for a while. Jehovah's Witnesses refuse to celebrate Christmas, right? And the reason that they refuse to celebrate Christmas, they claim, is because it's a pagan holiday. And they put so much importance on the pagan aspect of it. They refuse to toast at weddings because that has pagan roots. Is it really that important that you're going to separate yourself from a huge societal event like Christmas? Like, separate yourself from society completely for those few days over pagan roots? Some weak, ill-defined pagan roots? Really? Is it really worth that? Or the toasting thing, or piñatas. They're not allowed to use piñatas because of pagan roots. Like, give me a break. That's ridiculous. Or they won't celebrate birthdays. They cite a number of reasons for that. One of the reasons they cite is because every instance of birthday celebrations in the Bible ended with somebody getting their head cut off. Another reason they cite is it's self-worship, and you shouldn't be doing self-worship. But anniversaries are okay. There's an inconsistency here, and it's placing exaggerated importance on something that's honestly trivial. Aligning your moral system with a larger ideology is another problem that you should be aware of. This one is more gradual. Over time, you'll find yourself aligning on one side of the spectrum and hate growing for people on the other side. Changing language to conform to the group's moral system. Like, for example, this one is not going to make me popular, but for example, vegans don't want you to use it's when you refer to animals. They want you to use gendered language to basically humanize them, saying he or she when you're talking about animals. On the other side of the spectrum, extreme SJWs don't want you to use gendered language at all. They don't want you to use he or she. They want you to use it's or they or them for everybody, not just them, but for everybody. They want to eliminate gendered language from the English language. That is changing language to conform to the group's moral system, and it should be a red flag. I'm not making any claims about whether or not we should have gendered language. I'm not making claims about whether or not we should call animals it or he or she. Not saying anything about it. Maybe we should. Maybe we should call animals he or she. I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm just saying when you notice yourself changing your language to conform to the group's moral system, it should raise red flags for you. Distrust of wider society or opponents with undue trust placed in fellow members. And finally, self-imposed behavior modification. There's a lot that goes into all of these points. And I've talked about all of these points in a video before, and I'll probably talk about them in videos in the future too. Like I said, it's on my website, telltaleatheist.com, if you're interested in reading about it, what I wrote about it. But those are some points that you should be watching out for. If you are radicalizing yourself, watch and make sure that these things aren't creeping in.